I wanted to open up the conversation about how women are seen, valued, and made to feel in pop culture and also within their working careers.
Shout out to the women of the world, bouncing necks.
As a woman, have you ever experienced gender discrimination within your professional industry?
Absolutely. Like on countless times. I mean, in the film and TV industry, it's pretty rife. You know, from directors, grips, people all over the set. It's rife, even though there are a lot of women in the film and TV industry.
Are we talking about like sexual inappropriate situations?
Yeah.
Are we talking about pay disparity or treatment of women?
All of it. Pay disparity is still a massive issue. For an example, I've been in the industry for 10 years for film and TV. I'm a costumier, which is a fitter for extras. And obviously that takes a long time to build that up. So I've had years of training, you know, experience. And on the last job I was working on, there was a guy who came in and he was a standby, which is the person who goes to set, and he basically just looks after the set, makes sure that all the costumes are where they need to be, the people are where they need to be, takes photos, continuity, all that kind of stuff. Just like a general person on set. He was being paid, I think it was about £80 more than me a day.
Whoa.
Now that's someone who is not been in the industry as long as me, but you know, it's one of those things where you're like, what's going on here and how did that happen? You know, I obviously found out through someone and I probably should not have known that, but it's just one of those things that you're like, what is going on? And then it just creates this like bitter kind of feeling, even though it's not his fault. You know, he's obviously fought for what he wanted, but in the beginning I tried to fight my rate and get my rate a bit higher, and I was told that everyone on my team was on the same amount. But clearly they weren't. And sort of, you know, sexism on sets, very, very rife. We get treated completely differently. We get spoken down to, costume and makeup teams in particular. Like, because we're mainly women, we aren't allowed to go in to do checks if someone's got something wrong and we see it and they're like, we don't have time for it, get the fluffies out. So, you know, it's that kind of thing that we're,
my God.
yeah, so like there's a lot of stuff. And something else that comes to my mind,
and like even in terms of the narrative that's used when communicating with you in your professional workplace, it's kind of like, I suppose, feminized, like get the fluffies out.
Yeah. And you know, it's like like they think it's either women or gay guys, but you know that it's not. It clearly is not. In costume there are loads of straight men, and obviously those men also get treated differently as well, because they're in costume. They end up getting treated like they're less of a man because they work in a female based department. It's really, really strange. And then there's another thing that always comes to my mind, and this is something that to this day I will never ever forget it. It was my first day on set on a big film and I had radio in my ear, and I was watching the monitor, which is where you watch the screen while they're filming, and I could just hear over the radio, oh yeah, that's nice, isn't it? And the camera was zooming into this woman's bust. Yeah, and we could hear it, like everyone over the radio could hear it because it was on channel 1, which is the channel that everyone hears everything.
It's just so inappropriate, isn't it? Because if we were working in, say, an office setting and somebody overheard you know, a narrative like that being spoken out about one of their work colleagues, it would be like, you know, a sexual discrimination complaint, wouldn't it? Weirdly, in the creative industries, in both film and music, this is like common narrative that we hear all the time. Do you find that there's any men around you that are kind of standing up for women when they're when they're kind of witnessing these things happening, or is everyone just kind of muted?
I feel like in the costume industry in particular, people don't like speaking up, because I had something happen to me and it was done in front of everyone in my team, and there was about 15 people in the room at the time. This one guy basically was bullying me, and he was like screaming me, saying stuff to me that could have been to anyone in the room, but he clearly just got a bee in his bonnet and started bullying me. Not one person spoke up, male, female, you know, everyone there was older, you know, they're all adults, they have a voice. And that was the main thing I was upset about, because I was like, you know, there's a lot of people in that room that I would associate as my friend, not just colleague. And I had to like take myself away from the situation and go to our costume truck where no one was. And then about 10 minutes later, someone followed me and saw me in tears, and I was like, I'm just upset because no one said anything. And then everyone like individually said, I'm really sorry that happened. And I'm like, well, why did you not say anything?
Why do you feel that people don't feel they can speak up in those situations?
Because they want to get hired again, and they don't want to be seen as someone who speaks out about stuff. And because we work freelance, it's all word of mouth, and like we don't have agents, we don't have anything like that. We literally find our own work. So I think people just get scared, and they're like, oh, I don't want to be seen as that outspoken person or whatever, you know. So then it's like, but now your friend has gone the whole day, and more than a day, because it's going to stick with you, you know, when someone's bullying you. And I've seen situations as well with other people, with like trainees, young girls who've just come in the industry, and like superior people getting bullying them. And I always stand up for them, and I'm always like, I hate this, like, do not let it happen. And also I have said to trainees in the past, if this happens to you, come straight to me, because I'm obviously of a level where I can say something or be like, I'm taking you out of this situation and I'm going to go and get you to do this instead, because that's violence, you know. It's horrible.
When you've experienced these kind of situations and, you know, you've been subjected to this type of treatment, have you tried to do something to rectify that? Have you been able to go to somebody higher up or back to a booking agent and discuss the experience you've had, you know, and has that kind of resulted in any positive outcomes?
To be honest, I don't think I've ever gone that far. And this is the thing, like over the years, obviously before COVID, and this situation that I had with the bullying thing, that was before COVID. And obviously over COVID, the whole period of everyone being online all the time, all this stuff started coming out online. And there were these groups that started speaking out about the industry. And I was like, oh my God, finally people are talking about this stuff, because we're all so close and people are anonymously writing things in. Whereas before, I never felt like I could say anything. And with the person who did that to me, he was actually a supervisor. So he was the person that I probably would have gone to.
Of saying that really, that people within the creative industry, they're, you know, essentially they're very vulnerable, because they're worrying about the kind of continuity of work as self-employed people, and perhaps the, you know, the people in the production teams higher above, they're very aware of the kind of power balance in that. So this kind of treatment and mentality is allowed to grow and be the main narrative, because everyone's just, you know, too worried that they're not going to get continued work.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it comes down to.
Do you feel that there is one thing that we could do to help change this narrative, help change this situation?
I think we all collectively need to speak up when things are being happening, you know, and whether that's anonymously, because a lot of people have to do it anonymously, because, you know, they're scared to get work. If you don't work, you don't get money. You know, if you're freelance, you're absolutely screwed. And you obviously don't want to make a name for yourself, which is awful, because you're the one getting the treatment, like the bad treatment. But yeah, I do think, and also, you know, men, they need to speak up as well. whenever anything happens like this, it's always my friends, like my female friends, who say stuff online, you know, anything, I always see it's females. We're always talking about it because we aren't as scared, because it's us that it's happening to.
We need to be bold, we need to be
Yeah.
brave, and we need
Yeah.
to speak up when we need to call it out. We need to not
Absolutely.
just let it be out of fear and vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know, we need to call it, and we need to be actually, you know, publicly supporting each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have to come together as a collective, because otherwise nothing will ever change.
I
You
totally
know, we need to speak about it. Speaking, communication is always the way, you know, but with anything.
Well, I really appreciate that you've been so bold and brave today to join me and like call this out, you know, because as you know, I'm a music artist, and I wrote a track that I recently released called Bounce Unex. And that title came from when I'm having these conversations with other people and we're sharing our experiences and agreeing on these things. We are literally bouncing our necks going,
Yeah,
yeah,
that, like what I was just doing. Like,
yeah.
I know.
We
We
need
all
to-
know these situations.
I did this song, I put it out, and it started as something that
Oh.
came from me. And I realized that I'm just a chapter in a massive story that is shared by not just women, but you know, but by people. And you know, we're not doing enough to change that narrative. You know, we don't have to accept poor treatment. Is there anything that you haven't done or don't do because you are a woman?
I mean, probably is the pay thing. Like, you know, we settle, and men, like, I've got a friend who said to me once, we were working in the same place, and he said, you know, I just went in there and I said to them, give me this money, otherwise I'm going to leave. But I am always like, okay, I'll just take it. But, you know, it's like, I deserve more. If we all know we can get more, and I'm worth more than that.
Yes, Alice, preach.
So yeah, I think it probably is that, like, ask for more.
To all of you that have been tuning in and watching this interview with myself, Millie Blooms, and Alice Jayne, I'm going to be putting Alice's contact details underneath the post. So if you want to chat to Alice about this and you're working in the film and TV industry, or you just have an interest and you'd love to reach out to Alice, please do. Let's get this conversation started.